Okay, so here's a guide how to do tricky calculation questions in GCSE and A-level physics. Alright, so here we have a question actually taken from a higher GCSE paper, but this is our example. So, part one, as we always said, don't panic. This sort of question here is the one we're actually going to attempt. It's a lot of words, it's quite tricky. First thing people will do is panic and go, that's 8 marks, that's a lot of marks, I'm not going to be able to get it. Okay, second step is read the question carefully. RTFQ, read the full question. And as you're going through, underline any numbers that are in there, complete with the units just to make them stand out. You could highlight them if you had a highlighter. But there we go. So, the mass of a bullet is 16 grams, fired at a velocity u into a stationary block of mass 2.5 kilograms. The combined bullet and block start to move with a velocity v. The block swings through a height of h equal to 11.9 centimeters. Use the information above and equations on page 2 to answer the following questions. G is 10 meters per second squared. So that's step 2. Step 3, list what you know. So go back through those things and list them. So we know that we have a mass of our bullet equals 16 grams. We know that we have u equals u meters per second squared, meters per second, sorry. We have m block, which is 2.5 kilograms. We know v equals v meters per second, and we know that we've got a height of 11.9 centimeters. We also know that we've got an acceleration, or g, equals 10 meters per second squared. Okay, step 4 is list what we need to know. So we actually need to know v. We need to know v. That's what we're trying to find out. Okay, then what we need to do is step 5 is select an equation from page 2. So here is page 2. Okay, so let's have a look. I have got the mass. I'm looking for a speed, I've got a height. I've got an acceleration or a gravitational field strength. Well, equations that I'm going to use, I've got this one and I've got this one. I've got something going up, so therefore I'm going to probably be converting kinetic energy into gravitational potential energy. So I now know, I'm going to select those two equations. So my two equations I'm going to have is a half mv squared and my mgh. So this is my kinetic energy, gravitational potential energy. Okay, step 6. Rearrange. So I want v squared. Now the first thing, mass is cancelled, so I want v squared. So to rearrange, what I'm going to do is first step, times both sides by 2, so I get v squared equals 2gh. Next thing I'm going to do is square root, so I end up with v equals 2 square root of 2gh. Okay, step 7, substitute in what I know. So v equals the square root of 2 times 10 times 11.9. Now when you substitute in, you've also got to be careful of any prefixes we have. So we've got centi here, so it's actually 11.9 times 10 to minus 2. Okay, step 8 is use a calculator. I left mine didn't work, but here is substitute my calculator on my phone. So 2 times 10 times 11.9 times 10 to the minus 2 gives me a v of 1.54 meters per second. Okay, now step 9 is write it to an appropriate number of significant figures. Well, if we look at the question, I've got 2, 2, 3. I'm going to write this to 3, which is what I've done then. So rather than write out all my calculated display, I've written it to 3 because that's what's in the question. Unit, well, in this case they give me the unit, so I actually could get away with it, but 1.54. And that's how we do that part of the question. Now we can run through those steps again. So those steps again here. Use your answer to part 1 to calculate the velocity u of the bullet. Well, with this time, what am I going to do? I want u, and I've got v. V is 1.54. They've told me in the question to use your answer. I've got u, so I've got m of bullet is 16 grams. I've got m of block is 2.5 grams. If I go back to the beginning of the question, the bullet gets embedded in the block. So actually what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use momentum. So momentum before equals momentum after. So mu equals mv. Now this m though is going to be m bullet plus m block, and this m is just going to be m bullet. So I'm going to have 16. Now take care again, units, this is in grams, 1's in kilograms, so 16 times 10 to the minus 3 times by u equals 2.5 plus 16 times 10 to the minus 3 times 1.54, and using my previous answer. Now I'm going to rearrange. U equals 2.5 plus 16 times 10 to the minus 3 times 1.54 divided by 16 times 10 to the minus 3, which should give me a value for u. Remember step 8, use my calculator. Because I've got quite a complicated divide, I'm going to put it as a fraction. Saves using brackets. But I will remember have to use brackets because that needs to be in brackets. Likewise there, it needs to be in brackets. 2.5 plus 16 times 10 to the minus 3. Close my brackets, times 1.54 all over 16 times 10 to the minus 3. Gives me a u of 242.165. Again, appropriate. I'm only going to give this to 3 significant figures, 242. Now, always want to try and make sure answers make sense. 242 meters per second for a bullet. Yeah, we're, speed of sound's around 300, 340. So we're at a speed of sound. Yeah, that's fine. That's a good value for our speed of our bullet. Okay, so remember those 10 steps. Just to recap them, number 1 is don't panic. Number 2, read the full question, underline in any quantities. 3, list the quantities you are given. 4, list the quantities that you need to calculate. 5, select an equation that only has these things in it. 6, rearrange to make the thing that you want from question part 4 the subject. 7, substitute your numbers in, taking care of any prefixes. 8, use a calculator to do the calculation. 9, give your answer to the correct significant figures. Read the question, make sure it's the same as the question. And 10, don't forget your units on your answer. Alright, hopefully that will help.